Good evening, good night. My name is Marisol Mosquera. I'm the owner of and founder of Aracari Travel, and I will be introducing a little bit the event tonight. Well, first of all, thank you to Thomas and to Lena for being with us, and they're going to talk to us about their trip. So it's going to be them, the protagonists, together with Alberto Wirtz, who's going to say hi now with his hand, so everybody knows who he is. And Ruben Aragon, who's going to join us later, who were their guides in Lima and Cusco. So this is a lovely event where we are bringing together from Lima and Cusco and San Diego, the group that travel together, and the guests and their guides. So this is very unique. So thank you very much for joining us. And thank you, all of you, for tuning in. With the way that we'll organize this tonight is going to be a 40-minute presentation, a sort of a slideshow, and then questions and answers. And if you have questions during the course of the presentation, please put them on the chat. We'll be answering them. Well, Tom and Lena and the guides are going to be answering during the time of the event, at the presentation. And then if there's any questions left, then we will do it at the end of the event. And a very important point, apart from introducing Alberto and Ruben and me, and is that we have here Monica Cepeti, who is here, who's saying hi as well with her hand. Monica. Okay, Monica is a travel designer at Aracari team, but she's also the owner of the best restaurant, Peruvian food restaurant in San Diego. Hello, can you everybody put their microphones on mute, please, so to have no interruptions. Thank you. Anyway, Monica owns the best restaurant in San Diego, Peruvian food, and the name is Cara Restaurant, and she has produced a special meal for tonight that some of the residents are enjoying, including Tom. So I hope it's all delicious, and we're very jealous, those who are not having it. Anyway, so without further ado, I think that it's time for the protagonists to tell us a little bit about how it all began, no? And then I will turn to share the screen and show images so we can scroll through their presentation. So Tom, if you can start a little bit by sharing your experience, how you decided to do this trip to Peru, and how you found Aracari, and the beginning at the beginning.
Well, thank you, Marisol, and thank you everybody for joining our Zoom call in here this afternoon. Well, I first heard about Aracari because I was interested, and Lena and I were both interested in taking a trip to South America. To be honest with you, we had never been to South America or Central America before. So like any traveler would do, we ask our friends, you know, where have you been, where have you gone, and who have you traveled with? So as we were networking here in San Diego, a number of people said, well, have you been to Peru? And I said, no, I don't actually even know where Peru is. Can you tell me about it? And it happened to be, for those of you in San Diego, Alan Wasserman is who I was speaking with. And Alan Wasserman had done a trip with Aracari about 6 years before, and he sent me his itinerary. And as I looked through the itinerary, I thought, well, this sounds like a fabulous trip. So I did some more research. I called people at Aracari, but at the same time, I also called National Geographic and Backroads, and took a look at all the other travel opportunities. We had traveled with National Geographic, we had traveled with Backroads. They all operate in Peru. But what I particularly liked about Aracari is that they specialize only in Peru, although they do Bolivia and the Galapagos. But more importantly, they do personally curated travel trips, personally curated experiences. And that's what we were looking for. When we looked at the National Geographic, or we looked at the others, maybe they would focus on the Galapagos, maybe they would focus on Machu Picchu, but what we were trying to do was get a very personalized, fit like a glove type of trip And because it was just Lena and I, we weren't looking to travel in a big group. And this we learned from Marisol is something that they specialize in. So we worked with one of their travel agents, Helen Gamara, and we put together this trip that we're going to be presenting this evening. We had a couple of goals in mind when we were putting the trip together. Lena, as some of you know who know the two of us, particularly likes to have an active trip. So we wanted something that involved hiking, involved the out of doors, and you can't go to Peru without having those kind of experiences. Plus we are foodies, we love to eat, and we love new experiences. And so we got a lot of that, and you'll see that in these slides.
Perfect, fantastic. Thank you so much. So we'll start with the beginning. So this is, I'm sharing the screen, and this is our Aracari experience in Peru, and it all started in Lima, right? And
yeah, it started in Lima.
You went first to Lima, then you went to the jungle, to the rainforest in southeastern Peru, and then you went to Cusco, the Sacred Valley, and Machu Picchu, and then returned to Lima, right? So this is Lima. So here's Alberto and.
That's right, and we're so fortunate to have Alberto with us, and we've developed really a wonderful relationship with Alberto. I think that's one of the absolutely unique parts of this trip was the personal relationships that we developed along with the high quality of sightseeing that we did. A number of the people that we met along the way on our trip to Lima or to Peru said, oh, you don't need to go to Lima. There's nothing in Lima. You can just skip it. But we put on 2 days in Lima, and that was absolutely equally one of the best parts of the trip. And every time we went to a particular location, we had a focus. And our focus in Lima was the food scene and the culture scene and the art scene. And this is where we began. And Alberto, I'll let you talk a little bit about what we're seeing here. But one thing I will mention, for those of you who are watching, I mean, there are, what, over 100 varieties of potatoes, multiple varieties of bananas, and the best strawberries I ever saw. But Alberto, you might want to talk a little bit about the market. This was day one, morning one.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tom, and the friendship is both sides. I mean, I really, really appreciate you and Mrs. Lena. And it's funny because we spent together just 2 days in Lima, but there were like 2 full days, like really packed with action. Like the first day, we did what we call the urban eats experience, which is like going to see the food scene of the city through the eyes of a local. So I became your friend in the city. And it was my pleasure to show you first the market so you can understand all these colorful fruits and how Peru is like the painter of South America. And then we go to have like cold tapas in La Preferida. And then we go to have like holistic day in Miraflores and in Barranco, which are really beautiful seaside neighborhood. That's La Preferida. That's where we have our cold tapas, seafood tapas. And the picture right in the bottom left. Yeah, that's Barranco.
Está compartiendo el viaje de ellos.
Hi.
So I think this Andres needs to be on mute.
Okay. Can you please put your microphones on mute, please? Thank you. Okay. So,
but Alberto, one of the things that Lima is known for is the ceviche food. Exactly. So we have a lot of people who are eating right now and who are hungry. And so a place that's very famous for ceviche, and that drink, of course, is the most famous drink, the pisco sour.
Correct. And it was very special because most of the people don't realize that Lima, by being the center of the Spanish Empire in South America, gathered so many migration afterwards. So I always said on the first day that what makes Peruvian cuisine so special is not only that we are pretty much the painter of South America with like 84 ecosystems out of the 104 that exist in the world, but also it is amazing culinary traditions that gather here in this place, especially in South America facing the ocean. We have the Native American cuisine, the Spanish Mediterranean cuisine, traces of Arab cuisine came with the Spanish. Then when the Spanish left, we have the French influence, and then the Chinese and the Japanese. And if you put all that together, that creates a marvelous of Peruvian cuisine that you have the time to enjoy. And the next day, we went to the port. We went to Callao. in order to see a really, really nice project of transforming the life of the people that live there through art, particularly through street art. And you love it over there. And we stopped for having a ceviche right there in the port.
So I'm going to interrupt you for just a minute, because what made Callao so unique and what made the Aracari experience so unique is that we were really interested in the art scene. And what we had in this Callao was kind of an area of dilapidated warehouses. Alberto, you told us a couple of years ago that this was actually an unsafe area, and that this area which is right on the waterfront, was focusing on ways to try to renovate itself, how to bring itself up. And they've been inviting in artists, I guess, from around the world to call it graffiti art, call it mural art. And so we would see these very large art pieces on the sides of buildings and inside buildings. And it was really remarkable, the quality of what we were seeing. But it's not an area that I think most Americans go to, or that most tourists go to. I think this is something that's just emerged recently, perhaps in the last year or two.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
And so I do point that out, because I think that was one of our very unique experiences. And then because we were focused on art, there's a famous photographer named Mario Testino. And these are a couple of the pictures that he did. He did some other absolutely magnificent pictures of Princess Diana, which we didn't include here. But this was another highlight kind of the art scene that we experienced in Lima.
Right, and most of the people tend to think that. Go ahead, Marisol.
Go on. No, go ahead. You were saying something about Lima.
Yeah, I was saying that most of the people don't realize that Mario Testino is Peruvian. Most of the people think he's Spanish or he's Argentinian, but he's Peruvian. And it's very interesting when we take our guests to his museum in Barranco, just to see this amazing showcase of photography, contemporary photography from the world of fashion and the VIP people and Princess Diana. And the picture we saw before of these Native American women all proud and dressing in their Andean gowns is called high fashion, which makes, of course, a very, very, very interesting relation with the high couture.
So very sophisticated. You could put these photographs up in any museum in the world, and they would look great. But then, of course, we're showing the next day, day number 3, where we went from the urban experience of Lima, Peru, and then we flew to the rainforest.
And that took that was just a flight, 1 hour flight or so, right? That was.
Yeah, it's about a 1 hour flight with a stop in Cusco.
Yeah. And the area is called Tambopata. It's a national park, a natural reserve. And you got into this little boat once you arrived at the airport, right? And you went on a car to the port, and off you went to your lodge. So
this is part of the diversity, I think, that makes the experience in Peru so fabulous. You can go from the city. Now we're in the tropical rainforest. Lena and I had never been in the rainforest before. And I must say, in reading about the rainforest and reading about our accommodations and reading about the yachts that we thought we were going to be on this trip, we had some apprehension, and perhaps Lena's, I know, listening, maybe had a little more apprehension. You know, we didn't know exactly what kind of boats that we were going to be on. I promised her a large river cruise ship, but we ended up on, I think, the very traditional and conventional boat, which was absolutely a wonderful experience. So literally, probably 2 hours after we arrived, we take our baggage and we pack down to a much smaller bag so that we can make the couple-of-hour journey to the first eco lodge. We ended up staying at 2 different eco lodges, but our goals were really to experience the rainforest, to actually, you know, see animals, observe the plants, experience what life is like in a tropical rainforest, and we got to do all that. And of course, the beauty of it, this is a picture of the beauty of the tropical rainforest. So we were there in late December. Our trip was December 18th to January 1st. We knew that it was the rainy season. We were prepared for it. We're in the rainforest, and yes, it rains in the rainforest.
It often does.
Hello, Ruben.
Tom, can I say something? The beauty of the rainforest, though, is that you can take a shower and, you know, somebody with thick curly hair it never dries, right? So you always feel like you got out of the shower and your hair always feels clean because it never dries.
You don't need
And
a
if
towel in the
if you
rainforest.
take a look at if you look at my outfit, so it's funny because I every day it was very warm there, very, very warm. But I wore long pants and probably 2 layers of clothing every single day because I was so paranoid about getting bitten by mosquitoes. And I didn't get bit once. And there were so many people staying in the same resort that we were staying in that were so bitten up, but I did not get bitten once. So I was really proud about that.
Well, we had made multiple
That's what
trips to REI and we were well prepared with insecticide. We had every kind of mosquito netting and insecticide known to man.
And one thing that I think that you loved from the trip was that, you went to really authentic places. And it's really important to note that when you go to the rainforest, there are places that are much closer to town and to the airport. And this is a little bit further afield, but I think it pays off because it's authentic rainforest experience. It's not really, I'm sure you didn't feel like it was like a hotel in the jungle.
No,
It was
this
more
was,
like,
yeah, but beautifully done. We were well cared for. We got a briefing right when we arrived. And the travelers were all like us. I mean, from similar backgrounds, traveling in small groups. There were not big groups. This wasn't full of busloads of people. These were groups of 2, 4, 6, families that were traveling.
yeah, and you wanted to mention something about the accommodation, right?
Yeah, I did want to talk about it. So on the left, so our boats arrive at the riverbank, and then we do hike up to the resort or to the lodge, rather. It's not really a resort. That's what you're seeing on the left. On the right is an interesting picture of our room. So I really didn't know what to expect. I know we were a little nervous about sleeping in a room that had a mosquito netting. But when we walked in, I know that I called the front desk and I said, hey, you put us in a room that only has 3 walls. I thought we paid for a room with 4 walls. And so we were, again, a little concerned about staying in a room with only 3 walls. We didn't really understand that. I'm not sure we were exactly aware of it. And, it's a fairly simple room. But it rained that first night, Marisol. It rained, I think, the second night. And in the rain, it keeps away all the insects and animals, and nothing comes into the room, it turns out.
Perfect.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Right. So there's this kitchen in the lodge, in front of the lodge.
Yeah. Again, it's raining.
Yeah.
But
Go back to that other picture real quick, because that was the walkway. That's the walkway from where we ate, the dining room and the sort of family room, to our room. And we would see monkeys just hanging out on the trees every time we would walk this bridge, this walkway.
and
because you're right in the middle of the jungle.
yeah, you're right in the jungle. So absolutely, you're seeing wildlife all around you and hearing it.
So this.
Yeah, this is where we ate. So every morning they would set out a wonderful buffet. And sometimes Lena and I would eat together, and sometimes others would enjoy it and invite us to sit at their tables. And you really sort of get to know some of the other travelers along the way, through this process of your breakfasts, lunches, and dinners. You can't go out anywhere. That's all there is. But these are some wonderful pictures that just, I think, reflect how magnificent it is in the rainforest, even though it's typically raining, and you can see the beautiful canopy of the tree as we looked up. And then it was very common for us to see a parrot or a macaw birds or these birds. There's just wildlife. It's very rich, with wildlife. And let's see, there's the, I don't know all the names of the monkeys, but we saw
Red
this
howler monkey.
red
That's the
howler.
red howler
Yeah.
monkey, yeah.
Yeah.
Is it-
And Lena on the right,
there's,
Lena's got her boots on, and you can see, for anybody looking closely, we're walking in the mud quite a bit, but very famous are these salt clays that these macaw birds are attracted to. And that's what the series of pictures on the upper left is. And then our guide had a telescope as we were doing a hike, and he took a picture of both of these birds through his telescope. So on left is a woodpecker. And then as part of the research, the researchers put up these bird boxes, I guess, for parrots and other kinds of birds. And so that's a close-up of either a macaw or a parrot looking out.
This is a very unique place because it's very near the Maco Clay Lake, which is where the birds congregate. And it's the only lodge that is next to this wonderful attraction that is renowned wide. And so this is the only lodge from where you can stay to go and see it. But many visitors don't venture all the way out here. They just stay near the city and they don't see much wildlife.
Yeah, but it is everywhere, easy to see. And the monkey down below, that black monkey, I will tell you, Marisol, and for everybody else who's listening, it was really sort of fun for us as we would venture out and take a hike. You would start to hear the rustling of the brush. You would hear the rustling of the branches. And then the guide would have us look up. And then you would see these monkeys, particularly these black ones, that were going from branch to branch, just hanging on by their tails. And you could just watch them. And it was amazing how they were just barely hanging on. And then sometimes they'd be in groups. And it was just fascinating. We could sit there and watch 10, 15 minutes, listening to them, watching them.
And then the top animal is called capybara, and it's the largest rodent that we have in the jungle, in the rainforest. And here you go. So then next stop.
Yeah, well, this.
Right?
So we're done with the rainforest. You've now taken us out of the rainforest. And so now we're in the absolutely magnificent Sacred Valley. And I know that we have our guide Ruben with us. One of the most majestic places maybe that I've ever been to. It's just breathtaking.
Say hi. They know who you are.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening.
Ruben,
It's so nice to see you.
Hi,
And,
Ruben.
And I know
Monica, Marisol, everybody, it's so nice to see you.
when we started the venture, we got to Cusco and Ruben met us, and then we did, Ruben, I think it's an hour, 2-hour drive or something like that into the Sacred Valley. And if you remember,
Yes.
once we started climbing up in the hills, I asked you, what's our altitude? Because it is true that in Peru, you are at some very high altitudes. Now, Lena and I have spent time in Colorado, and we experience altitudes at 8,000, but I had not experienced altitudes at 12,000 or 12,500 feet, and that's what we were experiencing in Cusco. But one of the things that I think you always do on these trips is you have people come into the Sacred Valley, as we did. We stayed at this absolutely one of the most beautiful resorts or hotels that we'd ever stayed at, called the Hacienda Inca Terra. And the altitude here is around 9,000 feet, I think, Ruben.
Yes.
And it's lower. And the idea is that we get acclimatized. We get used to the altitude because we're going to be at this altitude. We've just come from sea level from the rainforest, and now we're up to 9,000 to 12,000 feet. So this is the inside of the Inca Terra Hotel, and there's a series of Inca Terra hotels.
Beautiful.
But we were just blown away. We never really wanted to leave this hotel. It was something.
That
remember
is
that.
true. We did not want to leave. It was a little piece of paradise, and we would wake up in the morning and we'd have to pinch ourselves because the scenery was so exquisite. It was something right out of a movie, and we could just sit outside on our porch, which we did a lot, and just sit there and look. It was so beautiful.
But one of the goals we had, we were in the Sacred Valley for 4 days. And the first day was just getting acclimatized, and we had spa treatment, and it was Christmas Day, and it was a wonderful day. But another thing that we said to Aracari when we were designing the trip, and again, this is part of the how they personally designed the trip, is that we wanted a cultural experience. We wanted it with locals, these are the Quechuan people, and we wanted a day in a rural area. And I don't know, Ruben or Marisol, you might talk about how you were able to do this and what's going on with this experience. But I will say at the very beginning of the experience that was created, that we met with the llamas and the alpaca, and with people who own this farm, which is a terrace farm. It goes way up. But I'll turn it over to you, Ruben. on this one.
Okay, yes, yes, Tom. Of course, when you arrive in Cusco, Cusco is around 12,000 feet high, still high. But then the very first day we were driven up to 12,000 feet high, and then down to the alpaca farm. That's where we saw the alpaca, the llama, that we call llama, the vicuña or vicuna, the guanaco as well, the four types of native cameloids that we have here. And it was nice to see you and Lena feeding them and kind of petting them too, because they spit. Do you remember? And we were saying that you have to feed them first, then pet them, because if you want to pet them first, they might spit at you. Do you remember? And yes, it was a great experience being at the alpaca farm, and then down to the Sacred Valley of the Incas. We went to see to the hotel, the Inca Terra Hotel, which is, as you said, a fabulous place. But then the two following days, if I'm not wrong, we went up to Chinchero. Yes, we went to meet the Quechua. That's when we had the first contact with actual Quechua, local Peruvian, and a place that I call the Deep Peru. And I don't know if you remember, Tom, we hiked with the Quechua.
Well, these are the pictures now, Ruben, that we're looking at. And I think that what they
right.
is how colorful the people are. And I think that the uniqueness of this experience, Ruben, what you told us is this is a relatively new experience for tourists to engage with the Quechuan people. And I think that's what I'm trying to really point out. One, it met one of our goals for our trip to have this indigenous experience, but it was very authentic because it's relatively new. I think this particular family, and Maria is standing right next to me, and there's Ruben in the picture, and Lena, of course. And we have Maria's family. We have her mother, we have her sister, are all in this picture. But they met us at the base of their mountain of their farm with the llamas and the alpacas, right. And they took us up to different levels, the different terraces of their farm. And
and then they prepared you a little snack. I mean, it's very,
yeah.
This is a community that still lives off farming. And then occasionally they receive visitors who want to learn about the way they live, and they also need a little bit of income. So we produce this experience, and it turns out to be great for visitors like you who want to understand the local culture, yeah. And for them to also connect with people from overseas, no? And
here we're eating some foods that they grow. There's potato, cheese, and corn right. in our snack.
Yeah.
Yes. We had this sort of picnic lunch, do you remember? But they were very kind.
And the corn is
yes, Marisol.
Delicious, no? This time of yeah.
Yes, indeed.
And there you are.
Were saying, well, yes, I think that was one of the best parts of the trip here in Cusco, Tom, when the Quechua started getting the bulls ready to plow the field with the oxen, and they give you their, do you remember their poncho?
Yeah.
They made us.
Ruben, I'm going to talk about it for a minute because they do a little prayer. They have a little ceremony that they did, so we participated in the ceremony. And then the purpose here was to show us how they plow the fields and how they grow their crops, of course. But Ruben, as you know, when they handed me the plow, I was just absolutely startled. And fortunately, we can't show the video of me plowing the field, but it wasn't pretty, and nobody would ever hire me to do this. But it was quite an experience. I've never done it before. And the other thing, Ruben, that I wanted to point out is I had a chance to speak to the gentleman, I don't remember his name, and look at his hands. The gentleman standing next to me was the individual who does most of the plow work. And he's in his 40s, he told me. And I couldn't have guessed his age. And I looked at his hands, Ruben, and they were like leather. I had never seen. He looked at my hands, and these were computer hands, but his hands were the real thing, very leathery.
Indeed. Yes, very, very rough. It's because they've done that all their lives, Tom, and by seeing them wearing their sandals in such a hard terrain, Indeed, even for me as a local, I felt moved. You know, it was very moving to see them doing that. And when I invited you to help them, I said, Tom, give him a hand. Then you were very brave, and I congratulate you, and I also felt proud of you, Tom, that you went, grabbed the plow, and you did the plowing of the field. That was amazing.
Yeah, and we continued up to another level. I think we showed some pictures of that, the very highest level, and the altitude was pretty high at that point. And I know we're going on to another day of our trip, and we've got pictures here of another day of our trip. But when we went up there, we were really on top of the world, overlooking the entire majestic Andes Mountains. This is another day. This was an unguided day. I decided to do a bike ride. And so we spent the day riding our bike on this trail out in the country. And what you can see here is just the beauty of being in the Sacred Valley.
Yes, overlooking the Sacred Valley, and that was amazing. That was amazing. Well, the first day when we had the first contact and interaction with the Quechua.
Lena and I are a little spoiled. Yeah, usually we ride on e-bikes, but we were on real bikes here, no motors, no batteries. And this is our bike guide here, but you can see the majesty of being, you know, in the country in Sacred Valley. Yeah.
Right, yes.
And
so I'm going to comment about this because I had read about this, and this is very, very unique. This is called Sky Lodge. And Ruben, I don't know, I don't think you put any of your guests, Marcel, in Sky Lodge, but I had read about Sky Lodge as one of the very unique adventures.
we do put them on. They go for lunch and they go to sleep. Yes.
So there's 4 or 5 of these capsules. They're affixed. I don't know, I hear a lot of background noise, but they're affixed to the to this cliff of this sheer cliff of this a mountain, and the only way to get up there is to hike up there, or I understand you can zip line there.
Yeah, you can climb up and hike up, or you can zip down.
We didn't do it. I just had Ruben pull over so I could take a few pictures.
Right, we stopped. Yeah, we pull over. We pull over there to take some pictures.
I know we have some adventure seekers on this Zoom call, and it's called Sky Lodge, and I'd certainly encourage you to look it up. There's nothing like it in the world, I'm sure.
And it's great for kids, for teenagers. They really love it. All the families we have with teenagers, they just all do it.
Just don't have a fear of heights, I'd say.
Exactly.
No fear of heights. No, I never did it, and I will never do it again.
This is the trip to Machu Picchu. So here on your luxury train up to Machu Picchu, right? And
Aracari booked us on. There's, I guess, 3 or 4 different types of trains that go up to Machu Picchu. We were on a first-class train. This was, as you can tell, a marvelous experience. You can see the wine glasses. You're wining and dining on your way to one of the most famous places, one of the wonders of the world. And you just can't believe, you know, that you're on your way. And it's so exciting. And there's Ruben with us. And then we met, you know, other people on the train, travelers just like us, a lot of Americans, but people from all over the world, certainly. So.
Yes.
And one of the things that, Tom, that people don't, that I think you're going to talk about a bit is that, you know, Machu Picchu is in the cloud forest. So it's very misty. It's very cloudy and misty. And you can see it. You can see it here. You can see the nature, because many people think that Machu Picchu is very high, but it's not really that high. It's high. It's lower than Cusco, Sacred Valley.
We had to have a couple of classic tourist pictures, and so this is our classic tourist picture. But Ruben is with us. Ruben is our photographer here, and this is day 1. And day 1 in Machu Picchu was very mystical. It was misty, foggy, a little foggy, rainy, cloudy, and you just feel it's otherworldly is maybe the best way.
Right. And I think we had the best of both worlds, because the first day it was very cloudy, very kind of, you know, misty and rainy, and it was, like Tom said, it was, you know, kind of ethereal, and and then we spent the night in a hotel that's right there on the grounds. And then the next morning, there was not one cloud in the sky. It was blue sky, and it was just amazing. So we got a little bit of both, and I can't see the blue skies.
No, that's our day two. Mhm.
And that's day 2. And so we got to see Machu Picchu in both, dressed up in both attires. And I think it's a must. It's something that everyone needs to see in their lifetime if they can make it happen. The pictures don't really do it justice to be there, and when we slept in the hotel that was right there, you really feel like some sort of higher power is wrapping its arms around you and protecting you while you're sleeping there. It's very hard to explain, but it's one of the most amazing places I've ever been in. And you do feel on top of the world.
Yeah. So our day 2, this is part of our day 2, which is we did a hike, going to the Sun Gate hike. And Ruben, that was about a 2.5 hour hike, I think.
Yes.
Certainly for the more rugged people, they can do a 4-day Inca Trail hike. We didn't do it. We just did a 2.5 hour hike. And, I felt a great sense of accomplishment. And, Ruben was right there. Sometimes it gets a little narrow, and sometimes I found it a little harrowing, but I managed. And we made it all the way. It's a great feeling of accomplishment. So here we are on the hike.
Yes, that's part of the Inca Trail.
Yeah. Having a little fun. Go ahead, Ruben.
Yes, I was going to say that section of the trail we hiked up to the Sun Gate is the most authentic, because that part of the trail hasn't been touched much by the archaeologists. They just went, cleaned it up, and it was amazing, because Machu Picchu was found first by Mr. Hiram Bingham in 1911, and then found the Inca Trail that we hiked up to the Sun Gate on. And just to be walking through through all the vegetation gave us a feeling of what the Quechuas must have felt also, or maybe the Inca, when he was going to Machu Picchu or going back to Cusco.
Amazing discovery. Yeah.
Indeed.
And then from here, you return by train, right? Back to.
Yeah, so we take a train back from Machu Picchu, back to the train station. And then from there, we took a little bus, or with Ruben, a van. We have a van, actually, that Aracari provides, Ruben and a driver. And we drove now to Cusco. So now we're in the town of Cusco here. We're 12,500 feet up. But we're in their famous square, I think it is, and in front of one of their famous cathedrals. We were so fortunate. A big part of, I think, a successful trip is where you stay, your accommodations, and that was the next picture, Marisol. And we stayed at Casa Cartanega, which is an old mansion, I think, right, or an old convent, maybe.
Yeah, an old house, an old palace.
Yeah, it's quite large, and but it's owned by an Italian family. And so it mixes kind of this old with this sort of this modern sculpture, modern decor. And the food here, we had breakfast here every morning and had a dinner here. Magnificent place, an independent hotel.
And small.
I don't think it's part of the chain or anything, yeah.
Yeah.
And right in the heart of Cusco.
Heart of Cusco.
Yeah.
It's so charming because it's full of cobblestone streets. There's a lot of elevation, so it's very steep. You can see that it's steep here. There's a kind of a bohemic area with this sense of restaurants and shops. So we were not always with Ruben.
Right.
Sometimes we were left to our own devices so that we could, which is a nice part about the Aracari experience, is that we, once we were done touring of the historical sites, then Lena and I could just go off and do some exploring. and the exploring was as fun as the actual touring, was.
I will also add that Cusco, just in my opinion, the food in Peru, first of all, is just amazing, amazing. Everywhere we went, it was so wonderful. But I thought the food and the restaurants in Cusco were that's probably my favorite place. Tom and I are foodies, and so we would always look for the interesting restaurants and the interesting food to eat. And I thought that Cusco was top of the list. What'd you think, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of a cosmopolitan. I was talking with Monica, who owns Cuero Restaurant, and I was telling her about the craft drinks that we were having. I mean, so many very creative, really craft or artisan drinks. I mean, I didn't expect that in Cusco. And, high-end restaurants, but still with kind of a casual style to them. So, yeah, really wonderful experience.
Wonderful.
So you spent you spent what, 3 days in Cusco, right? The night that you arrived, and then a couple of days before you went back to Lima to then fly home.
Yeah, exactly.
And then when you were then you flew back to Lima, then you met your friend again.
Well, so we flew back. Now we're on December 31st. Our flight's at 8 a.m. on January 1st. We arrive, I don't know, around 6 or something in the afternoon. And so right when we walk into the lobby, there's Alberto. He's there to meet another group. We were kind of sad he wasn't there to meet us, but what are you going to do? He had plans with another group who we had actually met along the way. We met so many wonderful adventure travelers, but the travelers were just like us. And maybe they were traveling with their adult or college age, kids, but that was another piece of it that we liked. But how wonderful for us to run into Alberto at the very end. Now, Alberto was also there for another reason, because we didn't get a chance to talk about the very special Peruvian chocolate, or the chocolate shop that we had gone to while we were in Lima. It was another one of the really special, unique experiences to go into this chocolate, where they source chocolate from all different regions of Peru. And so he was holding on to our chocolate that we needed, that he had just delivered. But it was really a wonderful reunion for us to see Alberto. And I think the other thing that really speaks so well, Marisol, is the fact that we're all online, that our relationship with Alberto, with our guides, and with Ruben remains so strong. How many people come back from a trip
so nice,
and have this level of connection to the owner of the tour company, that's you, and to our guides. Alberto did come to San Diego in early March, mid-March, and how fabulous for us. It just adds another dimension. And all this, it came from a place that we didn't even know what was in South America. It started with like a clean slate, and it led us to Peru, and it led us to Aracari and to you.
wonderful, wonderful. What a great story. Thank you very much. It's lovely to see all these pictures and all these memories. Now, yes, I don't know if we've got questions here on the chat. There's Christy and Mitch are asking, what is the name of the lodge? What lodge, Christy and Mitch, which one do you mean? Oh, the lodge in the jungle.
The Eco Lodge, right, where the monkeys were. And
yeah, these are two lodges that one is called Refugio, like a refuge, Amazonas, and the other one is called Tambopata Research Center. That's where the Maco project is.
And Marisol, that Tambopata, I mean, I remember reading about it, and I know Lena and I were a bit nervous because we were going pretty far into the interior. You might talk about that, because we were really deep into the interior at that point, I believe.
Yeah, well, the southeastern rainforest of Peru, because this is in the southeast. About 60% of Peru's territory is rainforest and cloud forest. But so it goes from north to south. This is in the south, the eastern slopes of the Andes, and it's very pristine. And there are two big national parks, one reserved area and one national park. And when you go to the rainforest, you really need to go into a national park or a reserved area to see wildlife, because that's where they're equipped to show it to you, and that's where it's preserved. And Tambopata is a very large preserved area. You know, all of this rainforest area is very, very severely threatened by illegal mining and illegal logging. So being a reserved area, at least you have a little bit of protection. And tourism brings a lot of wealth also to the local communities and helps preserve the wildlife. And this is a group of lodges that is very sustainable, and they work with the local communities, and they have projects to preserve the wildlife. That's why we like them, because that's the sort of thing we like to promote. And you go deep. You go for 2 hours, then get to one lodge, and then 2 more hours the next day to get to the other lodge. And it's the only lodges that are within the reserved area. They're not in buffer zones where there's damage being done. They're in the proper reserved area. And that's why you see so much wildlife, because the wildlife does not hang around in areas that are disturbed. So yes, I would recommend going to these sort of places that are a little bit off the beaten path.
One more thing I'm going to mention is we did a night walk when we were in the rainforest. And to do a night walk is to see a whole set of animals and insects that we had really never experienced before. You don't do a night walk without a guide, but we were probably 5 or 10 minutes into our night walk when the guide takes his flashlight and shows it, points to a spider. And it was, you know, a kind of very ugly looking spider, but this particular spider, they said, was so deadly that if it bit you, you know, you had 4 or 5 hours. I mean, so we were seeing things that, you know, I was so glad that guide was there. You would never walk out alone, but there's no way you would ever see anything like the kinds of insects and things that you would see at night. And then when they turned off the flashlights, Marcel, it was pitch dark. I could not see Lena standing in front of me. I can't even explain what that experience is like.
And yeah, and one thing that's really important to know about visiting the rainforest, and even if you know, insects are exciting and small mammals too, and birds, it's misleading to say that you see lots of exciting wildlife. You have to be interested in the nature. You have to be interested in the ecosystem, and the guide is key. The guide makes everything come alive. If you don't have a good guide, you go on your own. You see the spider, but then that's it. Maybe, but if you go with your good guide, then he will tell you and interpret and tell you what does, you know, relationship of all of the animals and the insects, especially the insects and the trees and the plants. No. So for the rainforest, you have to be very careful in going in a place which has very good guiding. So that's really important. But we have many questions, so I'll continue. We have somebody asking whether you ate guinea pig. I don't know if you ate guinea pig.
I think maybe it was offered. No, we couldn't bring ourselves to eat guinea pig.
I know I did not eat guinea pig. Did you, Tom? You ate something that was different.
Well, I think alpaca. I think they
alpaca, right?
Yeah,
right.
Ruben. I think we had alpaca. Yeah, at Sacred Valley, one of the restaurants. That
you did.
Yes, that's right. They had alpaca steak, I think.
You're exactly right. Yeah, alpaca steak.
Yes, but yeah, guinea pig is actually not eaten regularly, like everyday meal. Only on special occasions is when people eat guinea pig. We were saying when we have special visits, all right? And but yes, guinea pig was eaten in Peru since always. Even as I was a little child, I remember grandma handling me guinea pig, and I saw guinea pig always as a food on a dish. But I remember once watching TV at grandma's place, I saw they were playing a show from the US, I think, when the little kids were holding guinea pig and petting the guinea pig, and I saw them petting the guinea pig, and I saw my guinea pig on my plate. And then I asked Grandma, why are they eating guinea pig? And Grandma said, well, I mean, they are petting the guinea pig, and why I am eating it? And she said, well, guinea pig is a pet in the US. And so I started naming Grandma's guinea pigs with names such as Crunchy, Chewy. But yes, guinea pig is not only typical to Peru, in Ecuador, in Bolivia, they also eat it.
We didn't have any.
Right.
No, we didn't.
I don't know. We have a question from Barbara Bender. How high the capsules are up the hillside. I don't know how many meters they're up. Is it Alberto or
About
Ruben? Do
three-
you know how many meters? 300
It's about
meters?
300 meters, about 1,000 feet high.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
yeah, and you climb. The climb. It's for the climb is tough. The climb is
It
tough
is.
and it's scary. I'm scared. It's for people who are not scared of heights and who are very fit.
Marcel, you
yes,
did it, right? Did you do it, or Ruben, have you done it?
I did do it. I tested.
Marisol,
Yeah, I've
go ahead,
tried it, but
Marisol.
I've done it. I hiked up. Yeah. Anyway, off we go. And what is the best time to visit Peru between March or April and November? But you can really visit year round, no?
I'd just like to add, I'm not an expert on the best time to visit. We knew that it was rainy season in late December. And it was nice and cool. And what we decided is there's a lot of foliage. And Lima was like San Diego in a lot of respects in the 70s. And it wasn't like it was raining constantly. I know we have our rain gear on. I mean, we're in the rainforest, so it did rain, there. It only rained 1 out of 2 days in Machu Picchu, but not enough to disturb the trip. It added to it. And it was a light rain, like a mist. It wasn't like a downfall, torrential rainforest type rain. So I thought that was a really nice time to be there myself.
Well, the good thing about it is that Lima is very pleasant city, and it's only sunny and warm 4 months a year. And those coincide with the so-called rainy season. So to get an overall beautiful weather is difficult. But you can, as you said, you went in December and you had a lovely weather in Lima, and you had good weather up there. So, it's fine. It's fine to travel all year round. And there are some questions on the train. You traveled on the first class train, which is a luxury train, and you traveled back on the Vistadome train. With
Hiram Bingham is the name of the first class train, Hiram Bingham.
Yeah, but they traveled on the one called First Class of Inca Rail, I think.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. But anyway, there are a variety of first class luxury trains and then more standard trains, but they're all very nice. The one you took on the way back was also nice.
Yeah, we don't remember it as well. It seemed more efficient, but the one going up was, as you could tell, it just felt celebratory. We had this wonderful lunch and we had this wine and we had champagne, and we really, it was quite a way to travel up to Machu Picchu. On the way down, it was more efficient. I think we just went down. I don't remember it as well.
Right. Tom, maybe you wanted to tell them about the hotel in Lima, because you really liked your hotel. And
yeah, the Hotel B, I think the Hotel B was so again, I think it dovetails into, I don't know if you're putting all your people into this hotel, Marcel, but
yeah, we put a lot of people in this hotel.
And the reason that we particularly liked it, it's a boutique hotel in every sense of the word. Number one, it has fabulous art. The art collection is just over the top. We are art collectors. We love to observe art. We like to go to art museums and art openings. And so this particular hotel, and I didn't realize the extent of their pieces, they had over 300 pieces, and many of them are displayed. The owners of the hotel are avid art collectors. They have a beautiful bar and a restaurant, and then we could eat breakfast, take our breakfast in the library. It was a full buffet of just about anything you can imagine, fruits, pastries, and well located. It's in the Barranco area. The Barranco area, which we haven't really even mentioned, is kind of this bohemic kind of full of mansions, historic homes, beautifully restored buildings, restaurants, shops.
It's very European looking, don't
European,
you think?
yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And in the Sacred Valley, they stayed at Inca Terra Hacienda Urubamba, right? And in Machu Picchu, you stayed at Machu Picchu Sanctuary Lodge, right next to the site. Is that where you stay?
There's only one hotel, as you know, and there's a series of hotels under the Belmont chain. And the Belmont, I know, is a top tier, and perhaps you book people there.
Yeah, we
We were
do.
so fortunate to be able to stay at the Belmont Machu Picchu in Machu Picchu. It's the only
It's
hotel
next
there.
to the site, which is very
It's right-
practical.
yes, right there.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Great. So, and in terms of COVID, somebody's asking, what Will and Nora are asking. Well, COVID is hitting South America very hard, and Peru too. And so we now have very strict quarantine measures and for people arriving from overseas. So that's what's happening right now. The country is still on, Alberto, are you gonna elaborate? You're on lockdown in Lima and all over Peru, right?
Yeah, what's going on right now with the COVID situation here in Peru is that there's regions of the country that are like in severe quarantine, like Lima. And what a severe quarantine means is like you are only allowed to go out 1 hour per day. If you're gonna use it for exercise, that's fine. I mean, that's which is handy to be by the sea, so you can run by the sea. But even the beaches are closed. We cannot go down by the beach, only for sport purposes like doing surfing or paddleboarding. But it's very, very restricted in Lima. While in Cusco is different, right, Ruben? You have much more freedom in Cusco, I believe.
Yes, that's right. That's right. In Cusco, there is curfew since 8 p.m. till 4 a.m. So after 8 p.m., no one is allowed on the street, and there is police cars all over with the sirens, and they are finding people who are out on the streets after 8 p.m. Even during the day when people are not wearing the chin strap, they might find you. So, but in Cusco, it's not that strict as it is in Lima.
True.
And in terms of for foreign visitors, what happens is you really have to wait until the quarantine is over, no? Because I mean, even at the moment, you arrive and you have to stay in quarantine. You have to have a test, but also be in quarantine, which would spoil your travels. To be 2 weeks long.
Not even
know,
international flights, I think, are allowed.
There are no international flights.
As far as I know.
Right. Okay, there's some questions about is there a Martin Chambi Museum in Barranco as well as Mario Testino Museum? Martin Chambi there's a permanent collection of his work in Cusco in a private collection that is open to the public. It's not a public museum, but there you can see his work. And his family was thinking of setting up you could go and visit his lab, but I believe that's closed at the moment. A lot of attractions are currently closed. Okay, and what is happening to the historical restoration in Lima? Well, what is happening at the moment? I don't believe there are any major works being done in the historic center in Lima, except for a few, maybe in a couple of monuments, but I don't have the firsthand knowledge. Perhaps Alberto, do you know?
Yes, Luis Bogdanovic is the guy in charge of like restoration, the general plan of restoration of downtown Lima, and the plan has been going on. I mean, they still going out and working. They have to have a special permission. So what they are focusing right now on tidying up is all the beautiful 1800, 1900 sculptures we have in like the main piazzas, like Plaza 2 de Mayo or Plaza Bolognesi in different parts of downtown. So they are taking this task of tidying up all 100 years old sculptures, pretty much, because this year is the year of 200 celebration of independence from the Spanish. So in July 2021, the city has to look very, very, very shiny, because that's where, I mean, Peru was declared independent from Lima, like the main one. So the parts of this downtown city that are like being taken care of, those works are still continue. They have not been stopped by the quarantine. So the city is going to be like on the spot on July 2021.
Okay. So there's a couple more questions that are worth answering. Aracari, there's something asking me how do we manage not to cater? How do we manage not to become more? How to keep small and personalized and do things that are not canned tourism. And well, the Aracari's been going on for 25 years. We're going to be 25 in September. And we've always had this ethos of doing tailor-made bespoke travel for individuals who are interested in our culture. And so that way we attract suppliers, providers, and guides who love that, as well as make a living out of it. It's not only about making a living, it's also about loving what you do and meeting interesting people who, like Tom and Lena, are here doing this wonderful event for their friends and for our audience. There's a connection because we're like-minded people. That's what we love about what we do. And that's why we don't want to change. So I think barriers to that are the fact that we don't do groups, we just simply don't. I mean, a lot of the things that we show, the attractions, going to that little village in the Quechua village where you did the plowing, etc., that's not possible to do with large groups. That is impossible. That just kills the lodges and the jungle don't accept large groups. So we just do very small scale tourism, and we're not the only ones. I mean, there's people all over the world that do this sort of thing, and they only stick to that. So yeah, we don't expect to increase in volume, but in quality. So that's what we want. And and Tommy, I think you had a question about the Quechuas and the Incas.
Well, somebody had asked that question, so I was just throwing it back to you.
All right. Well, Ruben, maybe you want to answer. What is the difference between the Inca and the Quechua? The Inca is the ruler, right? And the Quechua are the people, right?
Inca indeed Inca is the name of the ruler. When people say Incas, there was actually one Inca ruling the whole Inca Empire at his time. And Quechua is the name given by several historians and so forth for the people, for the native people of Peru that got to be spread out all over the territory by the same Inca. Quechua is not only the language. In Peru, we have 3 official languages, Quechua, Spanish, and Aymara. Aymara is spoken on Lake Titicaca mainly, this big lake. But Quechua language was not a written language. It became a written language at the time Spaniards came. The Quechua took letters from the Arabic alphabet in order to make Quechua language as a written language. And so many people say that the Quechua wasn't written properly, but they had ways to communicate. One of them is called quipu, for instance, the strings with notes and so forth. But Quechua language is a very hard language to speak because it's a garatal language. Lots of sounds come out from the back of the tongue, sounds such as so it's very hard to speak, very hard to write it as well. But yes, Quechua is the name of the language as well as the name of the people.
Of the people. So when you say the Incas, it's really the ruling class. It's like saying the Caesar, right? That would be the Inca.
The Pharaoh.
No, and the Quechua would be the population, the ethnic population. And anyway, we're past our time, but I think answering all the questions and having a nice time. And there is praise for the menu presented tonight, Monica. So congratulations. I wish I could also partake into that, but I'm far away. So I'm glad those who are having it are enjoying it. So this is great.
There was one question about restaurants in Cusco, and the one that comes to mind is Limon.
Limo.
Place on the Plaza de
Limo, that's right. Yeah, on the plaza, on the main square of Cusco.
Yeah,
Limo.
so that was 2 or 3 different restaurants, but that's one that kind of.
Did you go to Chicholina?
Lena?
Did you go to one called Chicholina? Do you remember?
That
Lena?
sounds familiar. That
I
does
think it
sound,
must
that
have
sounds
gone.
really familiar.
Right.
Was that the one that we went to? Then we sat upstairs. We walked
Yes,
upstairs.
yes.
Yes.
That's
That's
it.
the
Yeah,
one.
that's
that
where
was
they have the craft
excellent.
drink. Yes.
That's
Yeah.
excellent, isn't it?
Yes.
There's a story in our newsletter about the owner. She's a great lady, and she's now doing all of our picnics and all of our outdoor food. She's doing that too.
Anyway,
Very
well,
good.
terrific. I can't wait till we get back to traveling. And you didn't even talk about your trips to Bolivia or Galapagos. So
Yeah.
we haven't
And,
done one of those, but we plan to.
So you need to go, and then we have to have a slide
We'll do
presentation
that.
after
We'll
that.
do that. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, if anybody has questions, then you can email us at travelaracari.com or marisol@aracari.com. And thank you for tuning in. And yeah, and hope we can meet again.
Thanks, everybody.
It
Thank
was
you,
lovely
everyone,
to see you all.
joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Mr. Tom. Thank you, Mrs. Lena.